When I say Newfoundland, what's the first thing you think of? Maybe you think about the relaxed coastal vibe of its people, or its world-class motorcycling routes. What if I told you there's a darker side to Newfoundland? Welcome to our special Halloween edition of Swarm, where we're exploring some of Newfoundland's most haunted locations.
We decided to start our haunted tour of Newfoundland here, in one of its most notoriously haunted places, the abandoned Terra Nova Sulphite Company mill in Glovertown, home to an evil spirit the locals call Red Eye. Even in the daylight, the remains of this building are intimidating. The mill was built in 1921, and it was built here in Glovertown because of an abundance of black spruce trees, which were considered ideal for pulp and paper making. Now, long story short, because of some political red tape and problems with investors, construction was never completed, and the mill was abandoned. Since then, the building has served little purpose in Glovertown other than being a late-night hangout spot for teenagers. But even that has quickly ended as more and more people began experiencing the red eyes that were watching them from the tower. One day during a head count, while the mill was still under construction, a worker was found to be missing. After a brief search, his broken body was found here at the base of the tower, where it was apparent that he had fallen. The red eyes are believed to be his, and you can only see them if you're brave enough to come here at night on the anniversary of his death. And with that, I think it's time for us to get going.
Strange. It's like Newfoundland knew we were on a haunted tour, because right on cue, it sent some fog. Our next stop is in Keels, 153 kilometers from Glovertown and about an hour-and-a-half long ride. We've pulled over in Keels, which is one of the oldest outport villages in Newfoundland. With a population of 51 people, it really feels like it hasn't changed since it was first built 500 years ago. And because of a unique mineral deposit found here, you'll see that the rocky coastline is various shades of purple.
It just sort of feels otherworldly here, which brings me to this. Apparently, the holes in the rock behind me are known as the Devil's Footprints. It's their odd, hoof-like shape that have locals believing that this is the spot where Satan walked out of hell and into our world. Now, from a geologist standpoint, the formations known as the Devil's Footprint are actually the result of erosion, where hard nodules form beneath the surface and are eventually pushed out through the softer rock lining.
As creepy as this ride has been, let's not forget just how beautiful the Newfoundland coastline can be. The next leg of this ride will take us all across the coastline towards Bonavista Bay, which is a quick 42-kilometer ride away, and into what some consider to be the most haunted place in Newfoundland. Bonavista Bay is rich in history. It's where many European explorers first landed over 500 years ago, once considered a gateway to the newly discovered world. Even though generations of families have planted their roots here, the families that live in Bonavista still hesitate to call it their own. Instead, many believe Bonavista belongs to the spirits that haunt it, and there are some places locals absolutely refuse to go anywhere near at night.
And this is one of those places. The area surrounding the Mockbeggar Plantation and the Bradley House is notorious for scaring locals. Since the 17th century, the Mockbeggar Plantation has been instrumental in the development of Bonavista. And the Bradley House is considered one of the most haunted places in Newfoundland. Now, the Bradley House has been home to many generations, some of which have lived and died in here. And there's two former residents who seem to refuse to leave. One is an old woman who can be heard inside the house, moving around the upper floor, turning off and on lights, and sometimes appears in a second-story window. The other is a man dressed in old clothes who walks the property and scares trespassers who use this property as a shortcut by suddenly appearing behind them or slamming the gates. Just outside of the Mockbeggar Plantation is Old Days Pond, and in the 1920s they dug a canal to try and drain some of the water from the pond into the ocean. Now, during that dig, workers unearthed dozens upon dozens of coffins. The bodies were dressed in a style that was unrecognizable, and to date they have not been able to identify the origins of those people. But it is suspected that they are older than even the oldest cemetery in Bonavista, which dates back to 1725. Unsure what to do with the bodies, workers were ordered to rebury them just outside of town near Moses Point. But treacherous storms at the time displaced the coffins once again, sending many of them out into the ocean. But that's not all. Coffins are still being unearthed underneath Bonavista, some as recent as 1946, and many believe that it is these unsettled spirits that haunt the entire town.
The final leg of our journey will take us from the coastline of Bonavista into St. John's City, a scenic 312-kilometer run that should take around 3 hours to complete. Did you know that St. John's is the oldest city in North America? And with all that history, it's of course no stranger to the paranormal. Almost every street you ride will have a story of tragic death, or murder, or suicide. And even more spectacular, a legend about a bottomless pond known locally as Dead Man's Pond.
Located just beside Signal Hill is this pond behind me. And the legend is, it's not only bottomless, it's haunted. It's called Dead Man's Pond.
Gibbet Hill overlooks Dead Man's Pond, and for hundreds of years, right up into the 19th century, the hill was the site of public executions. Convicted criminals were hung from the gallows on the top of the hill, as an example to others. And as the corpses rotted, eventually they were taken down and thrown into the pond.
The legend says that it is the ghosts of those criminals who still haunt this pond, eager to drown anybody who dares to swim in it by pulling them straight down. Don't believe me? Look it up. There's been a multitude of drownings, some as recently as 2015. Now, as for the pond being bottomless, I'm not sure I believe that, but haunted? Maybe.
After nearly 7 hours of riding, we needed a stop. We decided on the Inn of Old Pub, just minutes away from Dead Man's Pond. We thought it would be a good place to unwind and shake off all the ghost stories. Turns out, the bar has some stories of its own.
The owner and her family have told me a few stories about odd happenings in this club. Big Tom used to be a local radio personality, and there's a story that his image was there at the bar, good and solid and big as he is, but Big Tom had died some time before. There's another story about a carpenter who was doing some work in the back shed who he quit. He didn't like the atmosphere. The nails wouldn't go in the way nails should go in, and every time he came back his tools were moved around, and it wasn't staff doing it. And then every now and then the music turns on and off by itself. That could be a power surge, that could be something else, we're not sure.
Haunted or not, Newfoundland was a ton of fun to ride. As for the Inn of Old, this place is fantastic, and if we had more time, I'd probably stick around a little longer.